Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Barbara Greene joining us again, our certified orofacial myofunctional therapist. Excited to have her back today live on the podcast and the Zoomcast to talk more about the work she does. First and foremost, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Great. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for new-time listeners out there.
Well, a myofunctional therapist retrains the muscles of the mouth and face and works with how a person eats and drinks, how they sleep, how they have good head, neck, body posture, how they breathe, because we're supposed to breathe with our nose, not our mouth. And also retrain the tongue position. The tongue should always be against the top of the mouth. And on the spot, we call it, which is right behind the upper front teeth, about that far, and then totally across the palate, including part of the back of the tongue. Okay. So most people sit with their tongue, who have a tongue thrust, with a tongue in the bottom of their mouth. And so that is totally incorrect. And by the way, when your tongue is in the bottom of your mouth and not swallowing, most people don't realize we swallow twice a minute when we're awake.
Now it's getting me nervous. I keep swallowing. Oh my gosh.
And once a minute when we're asleep.
Interesting.
Every time we swallow, there's approximately 15 to 8 pounds of pressure that pushes against the top of the mouth. And that push actually releases endorphins.
Really?
So when you're swallowing correctly, you actually feel better because those endorphins are feel-good type endorphins. So people with a tongue thrust aren't getting that constant massage of the top of the mouth and the release of those endorphins. So a lot of people that I see have major allergy issues. They have TMJ, TMD issues of the jaw joint and facial pain, which then usually includes neck pain and back pain. They also have a lot of sleep problems. And that's what I was going to talk about today, is the type of person that I see almost always have sleep apnea. So as a child, they often are not labeled as sleep apnea. They're restless sleepers. They just don't stay still at night. So they're tossing, they're turning. They often have extended head position just to get more air. And they should be sleeping totally quietly on their back. Mouth closed. Breathe their nose. And that should be their sleeping position. But people with a tongue thrust generally don't sleep that way. But even if they don't sleep that way, they're either on their stomach or on their sides. So putting abnormal pressures on the body. And those abnormal pressures are going to end up with problems. So if you're always sleeping on your left side, then the left side of your face actually can look different than the right side of your face. Your eyes might not totally.
Interesting. Yeah.
One side of your face could be flatter than the other. And so the whole body is actually in a position that causes stress, in other words. Okay. So if you're on your side, the other thing that they do is they often sleep with their hands under their face or under the pillow under their face. So that's putting abnormal pressure. As well. Or they sleep with their arms up under their face or under the pillow. Or some people actually hold like a teddy bear and they've got the animal against their face.
So, my son does that right now. He's 9.
Yes. And so how they sleep is so much a part of what is going to happen to them in the future, as far as their bite and needing orthodontic treatment, as far as allergies and needing allergy treatment and being on drugs all the time, or their breathing and having to use steroids and things to try to help them to breathe. So sleep apnea is a subject that people hear about now because
Yeah.
people are dying from sleep. They literally, their airway is cut off at night.
Oh,
So when you aren't using your tongue correctly, the tongue, when you're asleep, falls back against your throat, and the soft palate and uvula is
okay.
correctly, so it falls back against the throat
Wow.
and actually cuts off your airway. So
Oh,
there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who now have sleep apnea, and it's getting worse and worse. So how do they solve the problem?
yeah.
They put them in a CPAP machine.
Mm-hmm. Heard about those.
Yeah, to try to give them more air.
Yeah.
And then they also put them in an appliance that holds their whole jaw forward. So then it's holding the jaw forward so the tongue can't fall back and touch.
Okay.
Okay. But guess what? When you wake up in the morning and you take that appliance out, you have no bite. So they go to
Interesting.
bite, and their bite is totally not in the right place.
Okay.
They've stretched all of those muscles in their face
Yeah.
inside their mouth for what, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever they sleep. And so now the muscles are forward, and so their bite is gone.
Okay.
It's really quite a big mess of what sleep apnea is. And a lot of times they're even sent to hypnotherapists or psychologists to see what kind of stress.
Yeah.
But very few people actually are diagnosed correctly and are sent to a myofunctional therapist to retrain the muscles of
Interesting.
their mouth and face. So it's a very simple process, actually. It does take work. That's one thing that some people object to. For about a 4 or 5 month period, you need to do exercises twice a day. And those exercises are very specific and they change each week.
Okay.
So that they're being taught how to use their muscles correctly, where their tongue is at rest,
Got it.
their lips closed, to
Mm-hmm.
swallow a new way.
Got
Okay?
it.
To sleep a new way.
Huh.
And so many people have very poor posture now because of iPhones and because of computers and iPads, and they're always looking down. And so now they have an incorrect head and neck and body posture.
Okay.
And that has gotten worse and worse and worse. And so with kids, a few years ago, it was
Yeah.
backpacks because the schools were taking out the lockers.
Mm-hmm.
People doing the school shootings, which of course we still do have. But now all the kids have to carry all their books in a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
So that backpacks weigh around 75 pounds by the time you get notebooks and your lunch and your purse and your books and everything in it. And then they don't want to be cool and hang it the way it's supposed to be. They want to be super cool and just hanging off of one shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're imbalancing the whole head, neck, body posture. And that is totally wrong. So we actually have created quite a mess for people.
Yeah.
As they have a swallowing issue, they have a postural issue, they do not use their muscles correctly. And then at night, they're cutting off their airway several times a night. And that's what sleep apnea is. And of course, then they send them for a sleep study. And the sleep study verifies how many times a night they actually stop breathing.
Okay.
How many times a night they have what they call an apneic episode, where all of this is happening worse. And then they get a score. So they're either mild or moderate or severe. And of course, if you're severe, it's rather life-threatening. But again, the sad news is that most people are not sent for myofunctional therapy. And they could get rid of, they don't necessarily get rid of their sleep apnea, depending on how severe they are. Now, we have children that we see that they do. They get rid of their sleeping issues, and the mothers can't even believe it. In fact, one of my mothers went in with a flashlight and a mirror and held it under her child's nose because he was a thrasher. And he was sleeping there with his hands on his chest.
Wow.
Looking up with his head in the right position and his body in the right position. Thought he was dead.
Unbelievable. Oh my goodness.
Yes. So it does drastically change things.
Yeah.
So if they're sleeping correctly and then they're using their muscles correctly during the daytime, then they have an opportunity to reverse that whole cycle, which is what we try to do. And in a child, many times you can get rid of all of their symptoms. Even their allergies often go away. That's not what our job is.
Yeah.
See happen frequently. So our job is to get their mouth closed,
of course,
their tongue in the top of their mouth, swallowing correctly, sleeping correctly, eating and drinking correctly, and then having good head, neck, body posture. And then we work on getting rid of habits. Like nobody should be leaning on their face. See what that does to my face? It lips, it changes my cheek, it changes my eye. So, leaning is a no-no. And how many people do you see leaning? A lot of people lean, okay? And then nail biting or thumb or finger sucking or biting their lips or biting their cheeks inside. Or some people actually bite or chew on their tongue. And then we have the people who have long hair and they're always putting their hair across their mouth or in their mouth and sucking on their hair, or they sit and twirl their hair. So their head is always off to the side and they're sitting and twirling their hair all the time. Have the gum chewers, which is all one-sided. So gum chewing is a very bad habit because it's all one-sided. Then we have the people who bite on pens or pencils. I have a short necklace, so I can't put it in my mouth. But if you have a longer necklace, they sit and chew or suck on their necklace or their collars or cuffs. You see people front of their shirts in their mouth and chew on their shirts or suck on their shirts. So any habits like that are, and their tongue forward when they're concentrating. So you even see people like this or between their teeth.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But that's how they hold their tongue when they concentrate. When we concentrate, our tongue should just push up against the top of our mouth.
Got it. Okay. Wow. You make me think. I keep moving as I'm talking to you. I never realize all the stuff, my tongue, my mouth, the pressure, everything that's going on. I'm just like,
it's very, well, and that's why it takes a few months to get rid of all of those. And you can't necessarily, habits you can stop, but all the other things have to be retrained. The way you swallow, the way you hold your tongue, and how you eat and drink and things. So by retraining the muscles, it takes a while. And it's what we call a sequential program, where every week we're changing their exercises and building on how everything should function and how it is when it's normal. So as a layperson, which you're a layperson, what questions might you have about apnea?
You're right.
Do you have any questions?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the whole CPAP machine, right? I had a friend who had to rely on that, and it was horrific. And she was always waking up. It always upset her. It didn't help her. Let me
Mhm.
just ask you about do you recommend those, needing to have that surgery to help it, or does that cause more problems with our air, the
It,
area here?
it
Yeah.
can, but see, they're not solving the original problem.
Okay.
They're only trying to, it's kind of like using a cane if you have a bad leg and you have a leg
Got it.
or a bad,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't solve the problem. It only helps you to walk a little easier and the have you have always have the fear of falling,
Mm-hmm.
have something like that. So it helps you to have more stability, but it hasn't solved the problem. You might need a knee replacement or a hip replacement, or you might need cranial osteopathy. Cranial osteopathy repositions all the bones of the skull and the body
Yeah.
into the right working position. And so many people have never even heard of a cranial osteopath.
Mm-hmm.
But
No.
I did, and one saved my life. I literally was in pain 24 hours a day on,
Oh,
on heavy drugs for TMJ problems.
oh,
My third visit with the cranial osteopath,
yeah.
I heard like this cork exploding inside my head, and
Mm-hmm.
all the pain disappeared.
Oh,
And she had moved the bones of my skull into a right position so that I was no longer under that horrendous stress that I previously had been under just a few seconds before. So
wow.
it's pretty amazing what people don't know about. And myofunctional therapy has been around in Europe. It actually started in the 1400s. They were looking for how to solve the problem of this tongue,
Okay.
moving teeth all the time.
Wow.
Then in the late 1800s,
Yeah.
more of Europe got into the program of myofunctional therapy. And then in this country, around 1920, uh, that's when Alfred Rogers, an orthodontist, said that muscles are just as important as
Okay.
moving the teeth.
Yeah.
So if the muscles are working incorrectly, they're negatively moving the teeth. And when the muscles are working correctly, it helps to solve the problem of
Interesting.
the bite. So people can find a myofunctional therapist, usually doing a search online.
Yeah.
Some people call themselves ORO facial therapist. Some people call themselves myofunctional therapist,
Mm-hmm.
call themselves oral, ORAL, myofunctional therapist. So a key word to put in is just tongue thrust,
Got it.
because that's kind of the whole problem is you have to solve the problem of
Yep.
how your tongue is working. So that's a key word to put in to
And by the way, what is your website? How do we reach you?
www.tonguethrust.com.
Perfect. Good, good, good. Just making sure we got to remind everyone. Okay, great.
I know. Well, my name is pretty well known, but tongue thrust is what is the important thing to know about. And so it is a way for people to, I have a lot on my website of education and pictures and things. You know how we showed pictures the last
Mhm.
2 weeks. And I have all of that type of thing on my website. And there's organizations that you can contact also. The AAMS is an organization that has a directory, so you can look up your state or your city. The IAOM has a directory, so you can look up people. So there are different ways that you can search for things. The insanity in my mind is that orthodontists are not taught this, dentists are not taught this, medical doctors are not taught this, or pediatricians are not taught this. And who would be the key person in this whole episode?
Mm-hmm.
Pediatrician.
So true.
The whole thing with babies is the tongue tie.
Mm-hmm.
Have a tight lingual frenum.
Got it.
They can't nurse correctly. So
Wow.
that's generally where it all starts.
Got it.
Or the fact that they're learning to breathe with their mouth open. So many people, it has been with them ever since they were born because they didn't take care of correcting that tongue tie. And then the babies learn to use their tongue down and forward and started the whole process of the need to be retrained.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around, but it is still, and it's now because of sleep apnea. Myofunctional therapy is much better known.
Yeah.
They're finally, some people are realizing that it's the one thing that is the answer to the problem. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I should have put the phone in the other room. So it is necessary for the population for themselves to do some searching and not just depend on a doctor to tell them what they need to do. So if you have any symptoms of sleep apnea, it's absolutely critical to have myofunctional therapy. And in my office, about 4 months later, you don't have those symptoms anymore. So it's an important process. Anyone who has severe sleep apnea, what I'm finding is a lot of adults are coming to me and they have a bite that's too small. And many of them have had orthodontics as a youth.
Wow.
And they pulled out 4 bicuspids. And by pulling out those 4 teeth, they literally sanctioned them to a future of problems. So if anybody is listening, do not ever have your bicuspid teeth removed. I don't even feel you.
When you say bicuspid, hold on. Is that when you have 4 points on one tooth?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Those are molars.
So, okay. I'm so confused because I was told as a kid I had bicuspids and it was extra points on my teeth. So you just could,
you have your central, then the lateral, and then the pointed tooth, the cuspid.
Okay.
Right next to it, you have 2 teeth that match. Those are the bicuspids. Then you have the molars, and you should have 3 molars. The first molar, the 6-year molar.
Got it. Okay.
Wisdom tooth.
Got it. All right. Thank you for that. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Alex, we got a late start today. Please tell us how we can reach out to you and how did you want to kind of sum up for today?
Well, anyone having sleep apnea needs to look into a myofunctional therapist and find someone who can help you, or contact me and I can see you on Zoom. And so it's www.tonguethrust.com. And it's Barbara Greene with an E on the end. So Greene with an E. And my number is 805-452-4302.
Perfect.
So lots of ways to get to me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here.
My email,
go ahead.
Barbara@tonguethrust.com.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you here. Looking forward to next time we connect, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. To all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.